Hi, I'm Bob Barbash, and this is my Gritty Blessings story. It's about how God walked me through a life of anger and into His blessings. I was a guy who had a foul mouth, and I was really negative, often critical of others, and could be overbearing. And I'm sure you've often heard the statement, if someone crosses you, you get even, I'll get even. Well, mine was not that I get even, it was that I get ahead. And I spent time trying to figure out how to do that as I went through my early part of my life. So what caused the anger? Well, I was raised in a good middle-class family. We were Christmas and Easter churchgoers, but in general, we're a non-believing family, and there was no abuse or discord. In 8th grade, I realized now that I was bullied by two guys, both older than I was, much bigger than I was. I'm not sure why it ever started. Didn't last super long, but it was there. I developed two emotions, both tools of the enemy. One was anger, kind of normal kind of stuff. You would be angry in that situation. And I also developed shame. Those are two tools of the enemy that when you put them together can get pretty powerful. Fast forward a couple of years, and I'm in college. I met this amazingly gracious, kind, and good-looking young woman. Her name was Pat, and I am absolutely certain that God planned that meeting. We eventually married and had 2 sons. And it's also worth noting here that my angry behavior has never been directed at my wife, ever. And she comments about that periodically. And when the first little guy was about 1.5 years old, my anger and shame brought me to one of the scariest moments in my life. I call it the high chair moment. He was sitting with his mom and dad, Pat and I, in the kitchen. We were eating supper. And well, he wasn't eating his food. He just was not eating supper. And then he started throwing stuff on the floor, and then we'd pick it up and he'd throw it on the floor again and we'd pick it up. And at that moment, I went ballistic. And I screamed and hollered at him and did everything except physically touch him. But I was that close to being an abusive father, both physically and verbally. And when I was in the moment, there is no doubt that the only reason I didn't do anything else was God. I realized what was going on and I left. I went outside and I walked and I walked and I walked. And I was in a mode of repentance for sure, but I didn't know what repentance was, and so I didn't realize it. I was also really ashamed of myself, and I began to see who I had become. I also now was filled with this guilt on top of the anger and at myself, and the shame just was accentuated. I'm still someone who was made in God's image. We all are. And He's always there. He never stops. He never leaves us. He's with us all the time. What we have to do is learn to trust and to lean on Him. Because if we don't, we're just going to go off into the way the world wants you to go.